And the next one is, this is so cool. Nathan does fantastic work every single year, and I'm always excited to see. He has just some of the wildest concepts for his needle-felted sculptures. This is a needle-felted Discworld model. So this is the Great Turtle Atuin with the 4 elephants, Berylia, Tubal, Great Typhon, and Jarakeen, holding up the disc of the world. So if you are a fan of Terry Pratchett's Discworld, which you should be, and I have never read, and I really should fix that at some point, Kathleen has stridently stood up and ran out of the room as soon as I said that.
Yup.
This is going for a high bid of $2,107.78. And that is also ending at 6 p.m. So definitely, if you have your eye on these things, now is the time to get some bids in. We haven't done that.
Get the bids in. Do it.
Let's see. What have we done? We did that.
Do it.
I have reminded.
Get them.
Oh well, hey, this is absolutely perfect. So there's a challenge here. Remind people of the silent auctions. Done. Also, I know Kathleen is a Terry Pratchett fan, so if she and anyone else familiar with Discworld could briefly discuss P. Terry's wonderful world and what impact it may have had on them socially and sense of humor or philosophically, that would be enjoyable and interesting. Thanks.
All right, well, I'm a big fan of Terry Pratchett because I think he's very funny. And lots of people like Terry Pratchett because not only is he very funny and very silly, but he writes good characters and he writes stories that mean things as well as being funny, which I think is an underrated skill. And you can go back and you can read Terry Pratchett as a more wise person and you can realize that there's a lot more going on than you first thought. Because when you first read it, you were just like, haha, lemao. So anyhow, you said you've never read any Discworld, and it's really hard to recommend because there's like 41 books or something in the series, but many of them stand alone, including one of the ones, so I happen to have a big stack of old Discworld books in my office because Dale is moving his Discworld books into like an ebook format, so he got rid of like all of his old books, well not got rid of, he gave them to people.
Yeah.
And Graham and I just were gifted a big collection of Discworld books because we were trying to fill up holes in our collection. So we ended up with a ton of duplicates, so we brought them here to the moon base. And I tell you what, we had lots of Discworld books, and most of them went to new and loving homes. I see Julie, like, pumping her fists in the air.
Yeah.
Which ones did you grab, Julie?
Every single City Watch one there was.
Oh, I've heard good things about the City Watch series.
I love them so much. I don't know if anybody here has heard of Hamish Macbeth. Andy's heard of Hamish Macbeth?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So Vimes gives me Hamish vibes. It just tickles that little bit of my childhood, and I fell in love with that sub-series immediately. So I'm so stoked to have all these books now. Thank you.
Discworld was incredibly formative for me. I wouldn't be the person I am today if it weren't for Discworld. There was a time, I think for like a good 20-year span, where I read the entire series every year. They're incredibly good. And I believe all of the audiobooks are on Spotify now.
Oh, nice.
Cool. I wouldn't be who I am if it weren't for the Discworld books and Terry Pratchett. Like, straight up. I learn something new every time I read or reread one of the Discworld books.
I reread, just for a light, plainy read, I reread The Color of Magic, which a lot of people are like, oh, it's the first one, it's not as good, you know, he hasn't quite gotten to the series. It's like, even if there was nothing else coming in the series, it's still an incredibly well-written, funny book.
Yep.
It's just solid. Like, even I kind of knew the jokes, and I was like, I'm laughing out loud.
Yep.
It's very funny.
Even the Discworld video game was great.
Yep.
With Eric Idle playing Rincewind.
Oh, wow. Is The Color of Magic one of those books that if there was nothing else that came after it, people would be like, this is one of the best books ever. But no, all of the stuff that does come after it is so good that it's sort of like, it's not one of the better, but it's like, great, it's still 3 times better than every other book.
It's really good.
Yeah.
So I grabbed a book for you off our shelf, which is, I feel like what the nice thing about Terry Pratchett is that he always kind of writes assuming you haven't read every single one of his other books. Like, you can
Yeah.
pick up anywhere in the series and you will get an explanation of what is happening. It's not like a soap opera where you don't know 20 years of history and stuff.
It's like when I'm DMing and things like that and performing and stuff, like it's one of the reasons why I try to call out like, hey, for someone new, like let's provide this context. It's directly because of Terry Pratchett.
Yeah.
Terry Pratchett taught me that.
Amazing.
But we have an extra copy. One of my favorite Terry Pratchett books. It's called Reaper Man. And basically, I'll just read you like 2 sentences of the back. But if you can't take it with you, why go at all? That's the kind of query troubling Death these days as he begins to ponder some of the P's and Q's of the RIP business. But the last thing the Discworld needs is a squeamish Grim Reaper, and so Death is officially retired, which leads to the kind of chaos you always get when an important public service is withdrawn.
Ooh, interesting.
I think after you read this, you'll have a better understanding of who I've ripped off. But yeah, no, it's great, and this introduces one of my favorite characters, Squeak,
Yeah.
which Erica will get after she reads it.
Ah.
So I realize this is quite dusty. I'm gonna dust it off, and you can, or I can give it to you, and I'll. You
Dusty
hold on
books
to
are
it.
best books.
I
It's
mean,
very-
it wouldn't be the first dusty paperback I have sitting around on my shelves.
Perfect. It's
Yeah.
fantastic.
They
Read
smell
it.
better.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Books should smell.
Huff the book.
Like,
Huff the book.
Ken was talking about this the other day, about enjoying reading paper comics, and I'm kind of the
Yeah.
same way with books. I can also not get into reading
On an
ebooks and
iPad.
things
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that
yeah.
because I enjoy. It's almost like a different medium, in like the way reading a book and an audiobook are the same story in different mediums.
100% on the page.
And it's sort of like there's an experiential, like having something you hold in your hands, you can touch, you can smell, all of that stuff. It creates a completely different set of like sense memories that go
Yeah.
along with it.
I think so
sure.
too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I collect antique books for that reason.
Yeah.
It's I've made the because I'm just trying to have less things in my life. I did
Yeah.
make the transition over to an e-reader.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, you can read books on your phone and your tablet, but a good, in my opinion, a good e-reader provides most of that.
Yeah.
You don't get the smell or anything, but you can even set the brightness so that the page is yellowed like this, and it's easier on your eyes.
Yeah.
And the actual like running your finger across it to turn the page provides some of that, and everything fits in such a tiny thing. I really like my e-reader.
Nice.
I do dearly miss having a ton of books. My brain requires minimalism, but craves a little goblin hole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
I just finished reading the biography that came out, Life in Footnotes, by his assistant Rob. I forget his last name. I'm sorry, but it's amazing to read about that man's life because the Discworld series, just the main books, are 41 books or something like that, and you think where does all of that come from? How does all of that get into a book? Where do all the experiences come from? And you can see like he lived out in sort of very rural lifestyle, especially like when he got married and moved out, he moved to a cottage and he kept bees and he had a garden. Okay, well that's the witches, that's Granny Weatherwax, that's all that stuff. And he worked for a newspaper writing stories and going to people in like their darkest sort of tragic moments, covering that sort of thing. It's like that's the City Watch. That's like learning how to deal with people and knowing like
Yeah, he also worked PR at some point, and that's veterinary.
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely, for the
Yep.
nuclear power plant or whatever.
And that's veterinary and how he wishes things were actually run.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
Benevolent tyranny.
Yes, Rob Wilkins, that's his assistant's name. Yes.
Yes.
That's the thing I remember the most. Veterinary is my favorite
I
Discworld character.
know. Mine too. I'm just like, God, if only. I mean, if you wish the world was run that way, it would make more sense and it would be more just, honestly.
Don't let me keep you.
Yeah.
Oh, and then a close second is Moist von Lipwig. I love Moist. Oh God, Going Postal
So good.
blew me absolutely away. And I watch The Hogfather every Christmas. Yeah.
Gosh.
I love, oh God.
Yeah,
Oh.
Vetinari.
Oh, it's detain you. Don't let me detain you. Yes.
But I feel like Vetinari is a good person who's realized that to be able to be effective, he has to be kind of a bad person. But deep down inside, he's, bends towards justice, right? And I feel like that strongly, and I'm like, yeah, I like that. I feel as a person who's deep down inside a bad person but desperately wants to be a good person, I feel like a character like that who can really fight their inner nature, like I feel drawn to. I can appreciate it.
Am I in trouble?
No,
All right.
no, just came over to stand here and lean for a minute.
It's great to know that, of course, he would, once he got Rob as an assistant, I'm not sure exactly when that happened, maybe the late 90s, something like that, but he started to dictate a lot of his novels to his assistant. He would sit in the office and Rob would write it out. And I think that, I don't know, but I speculate that that speaks to a lot of also the rhythm of the writing. And it's so oftentimes I will read a book. I'm a little bit visual, but I'll often read the rhythms in my head like someone is speaking. And it has a beautiful conversational rhythm to a lot of it. And of course, there's editing that goes into tons of things, but not too much because he produced 2 books a year for a long stretch. So he didn't agonize over every little detail like I tend to do with my own writing, and I probably shouldn't. But just to keep that flow and the conversational aspect to it really makes it this beautiful, friendly comedy. Like you have got a friend you've had for years that is just sort of shooting the proverbial bus with you. So it's gorgeous.